Well, that Stadia Connect was something, wasn't it? If you happen to watch the TSI live reaction over on Eddie's channel the other day, you might notice that a couple of us just weren't reacting too favorably.
If this is a splash damage game, I'm
I'll be upset if it's a splash damage game. But the splash damage is supposed to be an exclusive to Stadia.
Yeah.
Okay, so they can't be that. They wouldn't even produce a game with this kind of art style or anything, though. I wouldn't imagine. But yeah, I'm definitely exiting the room if this is the case.
Okay.
Oh my God!
Shit.
I'm done.
Shit.
Admittedly, on Tuesday, I was in a not-so-stellar mood because of the Stadia Connect and, well, being surrounded by next-gen announcements and being a part of the Summer Game Fest, which is essentially E3's replacement this year. You expected Google to come out swinging with stuff about Stadia, and, well, of course, my expectations were just a little too high. But now that I've had a couple days to reflect and maybe cool down a little bit, was the Stadia Connect as bad as I made it seem on Tuesday? Well... If you're new to the channel, don't forget to get subscribed, turn that bell notification on to stay up to date when we go live with new content right here on this channel. If you haven't already, also follow me over on twitch.tv/partyballtv, and you can watch me play some gameplay stuff over there as well, whether it's Stadia, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, PC, whatever. I'll do it all over there. Now, also some other housekeeping items. The Stadia Initiative's 8th episode next Friday will be at 4 p.m. Central Time instead of 7 p.m. Central Time because I do have to work next Friday night. Unfortunately, every now and then they throw a 5th day on there, and it seems like every single time it's during the Stadia Initiative week, and why wouldn't it be? And it's my last week on vacation. I'm already going to miss it. So again, 4 p.m. next week instead of 7. Have that bell notification on so you know when we go live immediately. Now on to the Connect. If you watched my predictions video for the July Connect, I did hit on a few things that ended up coming to fruition. But those things happen to be things that were so obvious it would have been weird not to mention, like Orcs Must Die 3 or layups like certain shadow drops. However, I made some lofty predictions such as the shadow drop of Jedi Fallen Order and an Activision-centered Connect announcing Overwatch 2's pending arrival to the platform. Unfortunately, neither of these happened. So, what did happen? Those that watched the reaction and post shows that I was a part of with the Connect, shout out to Sounds of Stadia and Kaya this week on Stadia who joined us, they may have noticed I was slightly upset. So what was I expecting? Sure, I made predictions, but predictions often come from a stance of bias and desire to see something. Yes, I wanted to see release dates made official for the EA Sports titles and Jedi Fallen Order and a big name publisher committed into the platform, but was this unfair of me to expect? And more so, was it unfair of me to put Google in the crosshairs for this exact reason? Yes, it was unfair. So sometimes time heals all wounds. And while I'll say that the Connect was extremely underwhelming for something was essentially their E3 Connect without the name, there were some positive things to highlight. So let's start with that. When it came to game announcements, we were introduced to a timed exclusive coming from a legacy character in the form of Super Bomberman R Online. And in this version of Super Bomberman R, it becomes a 64-person battle royale. And while I've never been that heavily invested in the Bomberman series, having a name like Bomberman show up, and as an exclusive no less, is quite a nice get. And if Tetris is any proof, adding Battle Royale to a game that wasn't previously implemented with it can prove to be extremely beneficial. Also beneficial is the addition of crowd play to go along with it, and while it didn't say so, I fully expect this game to be a Stadia Pro game once it launches. And speaking of Stadia Pro, we got plenty of announcements of titles and content that Pro users get access to. Hello Neighbor is a franchise that is extremely unsettling and was actually one of the titles many people knew was going to make its way to Stadia. A couple weeks ago back, the first game was rated by the ESRB for Stadia, and that was our very first hint. What we didn't know at the time was that it was going to be free for Stadia Pro members in September, and that the second game of the series, Hide and Seek, would also join the Stadia Pro library come holiday season. While these games aren't for me, it's a great way to diversify the library, and who knows, maybe I'll actually try getting through one. We also found out that we would get Season 8 for free on PUBG if we are Stadia Pro members, and while I feel the hype from PUBG has already completely died down since its release during the last Connect, it's likely a great way to get the numbers back up when that releases on July 30th. One of the biggest surprises out of the Connect, and one that excited many, was knowledge that the Hitman franchise was coming to Stadia. Square Enix has been very supportive of Stadia to this point, and they will bring the very first Hitman game in the World of Assassination trilogy to Stadia free for Pro members in September. Launching that same day will be the sequel Hitman 2, and launching presumably day and date with the other consoles in January will be Hitman 3. As we already alluded to, Stadia announced a decent amount of first on Stadia titles that included Bomberman Serious Sam 4, which we had previously known about, that is due out in August, One Hand Clapping, which is in early access currently and is available to try out for just $2.99 in the Stadia store, Orcs Must Die 3, and from what we are currently expecting, Stadia's very first truly exclusive title, Outcasters. But let's talk about Outcasters, shall we? At the very beginning of this video, you watched myself and Germani react to this announcement. Now, let me explain myself. Splash Damage was announced to be working on an exclusive title for Google Stadia back at GDC this year. Splash Damage is most notable for the work on games like Brink, Doom, and working on Microsoft exclusive series like Gears of War and Halo. So I was fully expecting something of that style that could be a killer app for Stadia. Now, had I been listening to the presenter, I would have known right up front we were getting the Splash Damage trailer, but it wasn't until we saw the logo at the end that we had realized what we were watching. In that style of Splash Damage's portfolio and what we've come to expect, I was and still am slightly upset that we were getting what could have turned out to be a party game of sorts from a team that helped us take out Locust and the Covenant. But as the days have gone on and I've looked at the game for what it was and could be, I'm a little excited for it. Now, I'm not counting the days down until I get to try the game, but I have a more favorable reaction to it now than I did in the moment. Like Bomberman, I fully expect this to be a free game for Stadia Pro members, and I'll guess October is when we get to see this game show up in our libraries. The heavy hitters from the Connect and the most newsworthy items were the announcements that this fall we will be seeing Dead by Daylight and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice make their way to the Stadia platform. Dead by Daylight is a big deal considering what is bringing along with it. First and foremost is the audience Dead by Daylight will bring. As of this video's writing, it is currently the 12th most watched game over on Twitch. I would tell you what it is on YouTube, but YouTube Gaming is currently having an issue showing all games at the moment, and well, that's kind of disheartening because that's where some big features coming in with Dead by Daylight will be utilized. Dead by Daylight's launch in September will bring crowd play and crowd choice to Stadia nearly a year after Stadia's launch and after they first hyped it up. And honestly, this is probably the best news coming out of the Connect. This is such a great way to interact with the community for those that stream on YouTube, and I believe we will get to a point where this will be a feature that is expected from all developers to include eventually. Well, non-streamers, that may have not been the best news out of the Connect, because 2019's Game of the Year can now call Stadia home. Straight from the team behind the Dark Souls series, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice was announced as coming to Stadia this fall. Now, I typically don't play these style of games, but I understand the fascination. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order went down a similar style with brutal punishment from the AI that required excellent timing and parrying, and progressing through Jedi was extremely rewarding and enthralling, albeit a little frustrating at times too. Sekiro is a game many people are absolutely hyped for and should be. I know I'll finally give it a try when it comes to Stadia myself. So, shall we talk about the negatives? Well, let's start top heavy, shall we? This Connect was made a part of Jeff Keighley's Summer Game Fest, which was touted as the E3 replacement this year due to the pandemic and moving to an all-digital format. Google themselves hyped this up nearly a month ago, and what are the major takeaways from this Connect? That Sekiro and Dead by Daylight are coming. Now, I'm not being subjective when I say that. Yes, it's cool we are getting first on Stadia titles, including Orcs Must Die 3, but the Orcs Must Die franchise doesn't carry as much weight as Game of the Year Sekiro or a popular multiplayer title including two highly anticipated Stadia exclusive features. There simply wasn't a big item of note from this Connect. Going back to April, while on the older side, dropping PUBG was a big deal because Stadia had no Battle Royale games at the moment, and it was free for Stadia Pro users. Also big was one of the most well-received games in the RPG genre, Octopath Traveler, getting shadow dropped from the Connect when that has not appeared on any consoles besides the Nintendo Switch. And of course, the announcement of EA's partnership and 3 huge IPs come along with it. Chase had joked the other day on Eddie Player One's channel that he felt like these Connects may have been flipped. And stature-wise, it really felt like it in certain aspects. There are absolutely good things from this Connect, but nothing that would wow the general audience like the EA announcement, which is going to bring Madden and Jedi into an environment which can be played mobilely, which is not possible anywhere else. Yes, some of us creators, myself included, overhyped ourselves up for this Connect, but as did Stadia, and for the most part, reception fell flat. Underhype and overdeliver is big. Had the information in this Connect dropped over a week of blog posts, this would have been received far better. The environment this Connect was part of simply didn't deliver anything groundbreaking or exciting to a mass audience. Now, I'm not taking anything away from those that are beyond hyped for a lot of games that were announced, but simply put, it wasn't for everyone. And that brings me to my next point. What or who was this Connect actually for? Stadia touted something called click to play in this Connect, which on the surface does nothing for anyone but maybe publishers. Because the way it was explained was that a link for the game itself can be made and put in the description of your videos, and viewers can click it and launch into the game and start playing. Great marketing tool, no doubt, but this does nothing for, say, streamers. Besides, there's always been a much more beneficial version of this link already available for some time now, which essentially puts them into my party. Click that video in the top right to see Dan from Stadia Shores show you exactly what I am talking about. Moreover, one of Stadia's biggest cons in the eyes of the general consumer is that a lot of these games are available elsewhere for better pricing. Fortunately, this is becoming less and less true as this featured plenty of first on Stadia titles, new Stadia partnerships including ones with Harmonix and Supermassive, as well as simply some games that you just can't play elsewhere in the way you can on Stadia, like Hitman and my highlight of the Connect, Outriders. Let's talk about Outriders. The game was the one I was most psyched for coming out of the Connect, as it was a new IP coming to the platform that simply looked exciting and enthralling. In the Connect, no release date was teased and nothing regarding its release were mentioned. But following the Connect, if you went to the official Twitter page for Outriders, you would find out that during the holiday season, the PlayStation 4 and 5, the Xbox One and Series X, and Steam will receive the game, but Stadia won't see this game's release until 2021. When exactly? Not sure. And while I would put this more on Outriders than Stadia, they should have been proactive in getting that release window in the Connect because it's absolutely available on Outriders' official Twitter bio as soon as the Connect was finished, and that's when most people that are interested in the Stadia platform would be interested in finding out when the game will be coming out. We barely touched on Orcs Must Die 3, a game that is using the cloud to bolster up the amount of AI involved in this game, so let's talk about it. Well, it's not a game I'm typically interested in, and yes, it has done pretty well when it comes to folks talking about it. It was used as the final trailer in the Connect. Right off the bat, Orcs was teased at the end of the last Connect, so we knew we were getting something here. But we had the leak last week regarding its pending status, and Jade Raymond had tweeted out that it was going to be available 30 minutes before the Connect even started. It took all the wind out of the proverbial sails during the finale when we knew what was already coming. And speaking of the finale, nothing was teased. We have nothing to speculate in regards to a future Connect as in terms of when or what we can expect from it, and no big announcements were made to end the show either. It's like Google forgot they were supposed to put a Connect together, cobbled up something real quick, didn't even bother having Phil Harrison involved in this one, and just put it up on YouTube. And Jeff Keighley and the Summer Game Fest did nothing to hype this up either. I'm not sure what agreement went on between Google and them, but there has been hype regarding almost every single event that they have done, from multiple tweets in the build-up, and of course a going live announcement, or even featuring on the VGA YouTube account. This Connect was Stadia's first time on the national stage since its release, and we simply overhyped it and maybe just expected too much. And maybe that's just it. Earlier I asked, who is Stadia for? And honestly, this is a top question many detractors of Google Stadia will ask people. Who is Stadia actually for? Now, many people out there may not want to spend a lot of money on a new console, or maybe they're a new dad or have 14 kids and they don't have time to game and they just want to be able to switch screens whenever they can, and that's perfect use case for them. Or maybe it's someone like me who works a lot and doesn't want to deal with the time that's spent downloading and updating new games, or waiting forever during loading screens. There's plenty of use cases for Stadia, but when you think about the marketing aspect of Google Stadia, the way they are presenting themselves, who are they trying to market Stadia for? Who is Stadia actually for? Who are these games for? Now, I know we make predictions, we overhype things, and that's not Google's fault, that's our fault. Now, the presentation of certain things, like the specific Connect, I felt was off. The games that they gave us, yes, there's good games in this list. There's going to be good games coming to us eventually. And while I do have issues with the presentation itself and the lack of a big thing to talk about, or a big thing to bring people that aren't new to Stadia over for, maybe that's not what Google's going for. Maybe we're thinking that Google is going to pretty much be a replacement for the Xbox and PlayStation, because in my mind, that's exactly what Stadia was all about. It was a new way, a new exciting way to put an Xbox not on your console. It's just there. It's just in the cloud. It's always there. You don't have to worry about it taking space up in your entertainment center. It's just going to always be there. And maybe that was the wrong line of thinking. Maybe Google's always had this plan that they're going to market this to a huge, broad audience. And maybe we just weren't listening very well, because they did say they want to reach the billion gamers that are out there. Now, a billion people don't own a Switch. A billion people don't own a PlayStation. A billion people don't own a PC. And a billion people do not own an Xbox. And what do a billion people own? They own a phone. They own a TV. They own a computer. In the aggregate, they own all these things. There's millions upon millions, which ends up equaling billions of gamers out there that Google is trying to reach. Now, we're expecting Google to play by the same rules as PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, but they don't, and they aren't, and they're doing fine with it. This leads a lot of people like myself that are expecting these huge announcements or these huge presentations or these presentations specifically aimed at gamers like me. But they aren't. And they're trying to appeal to a much wider audience than we initially, I think, hoped or anticipated. And that's been my biggest failure as, I think, someone that's talking about Stadia a lot, is that I'm just not looking at Stadia as what they can be instead of what I think they should be. Because Google is playing the game very differently. And I put in a tweet the other day, and you might have seen it, is that I need to accept that Google's not going to do what other companies do. They simply aren't. They need to differentiate themselves somehow, and I think this is maybe their way of doing it. And during the Connect and immediately after the Connect, I was just in a bad mood because I was expecting this platform that I really, really care about and truly believe in to do what I expected them to do. Now, we're in month 7 or 8 or whatever the case may be of Stadia being fully public, but I'm expecting them to be at a level that Microsoft or Sony or Nintendo have been in for the last 20, 30 years. Not going to happen. No, I shouldn't expect that we should have all these games immediately the day they're released. And I have made that point before that back, I don't know, the first year or so, we should expect games to not immediately come day and date. So like in Outriders, it shouldn't necessarily immediately in my mind be there day and date. Just because Stadia exists as a platform doesn't mean it's been worked on as a platform. Now, Stadia just entered the market. They have a brand new way of doing things, working on the Linux system, working with Vulkan. That's new and different to a lot of developers. And some developers are like, not for us. We're not going to do that. But as we see more and more new publishers, new developers are showing up on this platform, and we are not focusing on the positives of it. Yes, there's a lot of negatives that we can talk about, and that I kind of went over in this video. And if you want to watch about a lot more negatives, go ahead and watch the reaction streams over on Eddie's channel. And when it comes to over here, I do like to focus on the positives because I like being happy. I like thinking happy thoughts. So when I was making this exact video, I didn't know exactly how I wanted to talk about it because I was pretty pissed off the other day, but at the same time, I'm not really thinking about what they are doing and what they can do and what the future may hold for this platform. And I mean, the discussion has been wide ranging the last few days. There's a lot of people that have hated it and have just settled on it. They hate it. That's it. But a lot of other people have been positive since and have been nothing but. It's just they liked what they saw. They are happy with what this platform is going to be doing. They're not expecting the world and more. And that's probably the mindset I should have walked in with and left with. It's just, but I didn't at the time. And it's just, I mean, I'm looking at the list right in front of me because I took notes during the actual Connect of the games they're announcing, the features that might have been there. I mean, they have plenty of new partnerships with like a Harmonix. I love Rock Band, so I know Harmonix does great things, and now they're going to do something exclusively with Stadia. Supermassive, I believe, does some games in the horror genre, which is a genre that's horribly lacking in the Stadia platform. And then Uppercut is a much smaller developer, I believe, is typically focused on mobile games. I don't know off the top of my head. And of course, they've been working with Splash Damage, and well, that was probably one of my biggest disappointments the day of the Connect. And even just thinking about it, I was like, man, how awesome would we have like a version of Gears of War or Halo on Stadia. And I'm not saying specifically we'd have a Halo game or a Gears game on Stadia. That just won't happen. But like a game of that style, a game of that genre, I was really hyped for. And when I saw what Splash Damage was giving out, I was like, no, why? This wasn't what I wanted or hoped for or expected. Stadia isn't doing what we should be expecting at this point. I mean, look at Stadia Pro, for instance. Since I know this video is kind of turning into something different, but Stadia Pro is to be compared to Xbox Live Gold and PlayStation Plus. But look at PlayStation Plus. You get those 2 games, like, say, for the month of July. And if you don't pick them up in the month of July, guess what? Too late, you're gone. With Google Stadia, I believe you're near 20 games right now if you sign up for a free trial. That is insane. And people will say like, oh, you should have the Netflix of games on Stadia. You should just put every game in there for free and put a part of a subscription. That's just not maintainable. Now, what they have been doing has just been overwhelmingly awesome. Like, there's so many games in my library that I'm like, holy crap, this is there. Oh my God, this is there. I still haven't had time to play that. I don't even know when I'm going to have time to play that. Like, it's to the point where it's almost a little too much. But again, there's things that Stadia is doing differently to really separate themselves. And yes, we're only in month 7, month 8, whatever it might be, and we're getting closer to that year mark. We need to let Stadia grow as a platform and have these opportunities to make the mistakes, take the best parts of the community that they are trying to reach to a broader audience, if that makes any sense. But there's a lot of good things people have been saying, bad and good, about Stadia since the Connect, and that they should absolutely take to the drawing board and fix or continue to pump into their content. Always accentuate the positives and hide the negatives, which you should be doing no matter what you're doing. I was hot on Tuesday. I was hot. I was upset. I was excited going into it. It was like this huge like roller coaster that just fell for me. Like, that's how it felt. I was super excited and just, I mean, I'm still looking at this list. I mean, there's games I'm going to play on this list, obviously, but I don't know. I don't know what I was really expecting in the end, but they do have some work to do. But at the same time, there is a lot of good stuff that is with this list. The features are finally coming. I'm probably looking at September at the very earliest. When it comes to like crowd play and crowd choice. Of course, you got the new partnerships from like Harmonix and Supermassive and Uppercut, which, if we're going to use the splash damage piece as one instance of it, back in March is when we found out about that. And so if you got about that 6 to 8 month window, maybe we're going to be looking at some games from these developers in 6 to 8 months from now, because maybe these games have already been in development for a few months, and I assume they have been. We could be expecting brand new games exclusive to the platform while Stadia works on the first party stuff, which I'm hoping at the very, very latest we find out around December, January, what they're actually working on. We just need some kind of cinematic teaser. And I think that's one thing I was disappointed we didn't get. But I want to know what your thoughts were about the Connect, because I had a lot of them here, obviously. You saw my face a lot, and you also heard me just talking over video. So what you saw me just rattling off here, let me know your thoughts were. Of course, leave them in the comment section down below. Like this video. It does help us out. Lets other people find me just like you did. And of course, share this with a friend that wanted to, I don't know, hear some random person's thoughts on the Connect, or had some thoughts they just wanted to share out there into the world. Of course, get subscribed and turn that bell notification on so you get up-to-date notifications when we go live. And of course, next Friday, Stadia Initiative episode number 8. Me, Eddie, Meg, Chase, Germani, also known as 64, and MM2K of Stadia Dosage. We will be going live for episode number 8, as I just said, at 4 p.m. Central Daylight Time instead of 7. And as always, I want to thank you guys for your support, and party on.